This is an Inbound Logistics AI presentation. As part of its long-standing commitment to logistics and supply chain education for both enterprises and students, Inbound Logistics is debuting its new IL Education series. This informative content, voiced by IL AI Audio, helps practitioners better understand key concepts and trending topics in supply chain management and sharpen their knowledge of all things logistics. In this episode, we're talking about transloading.
Okay, so you're staring down a mountain of information.
Yeah.
Maybe prepping for some huge project, or maybe you're just one of those people who loves to figure out how things work. I get that. And one of the most fascinating things to me is how stuff moves around this planet. It's a global dance, and today we're going to break down one of those critical moves. We're doing a deep dive on transloading.
That's right. Transloading. Basically, it's just moving goods from one type of transportation to another. Think trucks to trains, ships to rail lines, maybe even switching between different kinds of train cars.
Exactly. And if you've ever ordered something online, you know, that package traveled a long, sometimes crazy complicated path to get to you.
Oh, yeah. Chances are transloading was a part of that journey.
So if you're ready, and I think you are because you're here with us, let's figure out exactly what transloading is, why it's so valuable, and why it's, well, essential for modern logistics.
And to help us do that, we're going to lean heavily on an article from Inbound Logistics magazine called What is Transloading? They know their stuff. And we're going to start with something that might surprise you, why shippers are big fans of this whole transloading thing.
Okay, so what makes shippers love transloading so much? I mean, when I think about it, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, cost.
Yeah, that's a big one. Rail is almost always cheaper than trucking, especially when you're moving a lot of stuff over long distances.
Right, like shipping bulk commodities across the country.
Absolutely. So with transloading, shippers can take advantage of those lower rail costs for the long haul. Think of it like a relay race, right?
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
A truck picks up the goods at the factory, hauls them to the rail yard. The train does the heavy lifting literally for hundreds or even thousands of miles. And then another truck takes over for that last leg to get it to the customer.
So it's all about choosing the best tool for the job at each stage of the journey.
Exactly. And that brings us to the second major advantage, flexibility. Not every business is located right next to a rail line, obviously.
No, and that's where the truck comes in.
Exactly. It's like a network of smaller roads feeding into the main highway. Plus, transloading lets you consolidate smaller shipments into bigger ones for that rail journey. Or you can break down those larger shipments at the destination for easier delivery to multiple customers. It gives shippers way more control.
Or control and more reach, right? Because if you can suddenly tap into this huge rail network, you're not limited to just places you can easily reach by truck.
That's right. Suddenly, new markets open up. Places that might have been too expensive or logistically tricky to serve before. Imagine a small business, say in a rural area, suddenly able to ship nationwide because they can access the rail system through a nearby transload facility.
That's huge for them.
Yeah.
And it all leads to that fourth benefit.
Yeah.
Supply chain optimization. It's like transloading is the glue that holds everything together.
It is. It's about picking the most efficient mode of transportation for each part of the process. You know, keeping everything flowing smoothly, sometimes even providing temporary storage while goods are waiting to move on to the next stage.
So for shippers, it's about lower cost, more flexibility in where they can ship, the ability to reach those new markets, and a more streamlined, efficient supply chain overall.
Right, on all counts.
Okay, now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. The article says that transloading plays an integral role in modern logistics. That suggests it's not just about the direct benefits for shippers, but it impacts how all goods move around.
Definitely. And one of the key points here is flexibility, the ability to handle a whole range of cargo, different sizes, different types, and getting those deliveries where they need to be on time.
Yeah, in today's world, things change all the time. Disruptions happen. Being able to adapt is critical.
Absolutely. You need a logistics system that can roll with the punches. And these transload facilities are designed for that. They can handle pretty much anything. Consumer goods, raw materials, anything that needs to move between different transportation networks. They're like the ultimate connectors.
That makes sense. So we've got flexibility, then there's speed. The article actually uses a term I had to look up, tighter transit standard deviation compared to traditional interior point intermodal, or IPI, moves. For the rest of us, what does that actually mean?
Well, for the rest of us, what does that actually mean? Well, Basically, it means that transloading can actually lead to more consistent delivery times, even though you might think adding that extra step, that transfer, would slow things down.
That's counterintuitive.
It is,
Yeah.
but it comes down to better coordination at these transload facilities. And sometimes it means avoiding some of the unpredictable stuff that happens with long-haul trucking, like traffic jams or driver shortages.
Right, and the article is talking about IPI moves, which are rail shipments that go directly from one inland point to another.
Right, and those can sometimes involve longer, less flexible routes. So tighter transit standard deviation with transloading means there's less variation in how long a shipment takes. Businesses can plan better, meet their customers' expectations more reliably. It's not just about being fast, it's about being predictable.
So reliability is key. And that brings us to inventory management, which is the next big point the article makes.
And it all ties together, right? If you've got more flexible ways to move things and more predictable transit times, you can be smarter about where you position your inventory.
You don't have to keep as much stock on hand, which can be expensive.
Exactly. You can respond to changes in demand faster, reduce the risk of running out of stuff or having too much of it sitting around. Transloading helps make sure the right products are in the right place at the right time.
Okay, so cost savings, flexibility, reach, supply chain optimization, more reliable delivery, better inventory management. That's a pretty impressive list.
Right.
But the article doesn't shy away from some of the challenges, right? Because it's not all sunshine and roses. There are things to consider.
Oh, absolutely. Like with anything in logistics, there are trade-offs. And one of the big ones is finding the right transload provider.
Which makes sense. You're trusting them with your goods at a critical point in the process. The article stresses finding those certified providers with a national, maybe even global presence to reduce risk.
They need a solid track record, the expertise to handle your specific type of cargo. They need the right facilities and equipment to do the job safely and efficiently.
And that leads to the second point, damage. More handling means more risk, especially for delicate products.
Yeah, that's always a concern. You've got to partner with providers who really know what they're doing. They need to have strict procedures, be experienced with your type of goods, and use proper packaging and handling techniques to minimize that risk of damage.
Okay, so choose your partners wisely. Be mindful of the potential for damage. And the third thing to think about is inventory management, right? Because even though transloading can help you get a better handle on your inventory, it also means you need to be really good at tracking.
Absolutely. Your goods are moving between different modes of transport, maybe being stored temporarily at a facility. You need rock-solid tracking systems and clear communication every step of the way. You need to know exactly where your inventory is, what condition it's in, to prevent delays and make sure those deliveries arrive on time.
Okay, choose the right partners, understand the risks, be on top of your tracking. But how do you know if transloading is even the right solution for you? The article has a section called "Is Transloading Right for You?" and it offers a few key indicators.
It's a great checklist to see if this approach makes sense for your business. And the first one is pretty straightforward. Are you looking to manage your cargo flow more effectively and efficiently?
I think that's a goal for pretty much everyone, right?
Yeah.
But the next indicator gets more specific.
Yeah.
Do you regularly ship large volumes to specific ports of entry?
Yeah, and this is especially relevant for international trade. Huge amounts of goods come in through ports and then need to be distributed inland. Transloading makes that inland leg much more efficient.
Right. And what about deliveries to those hard-to-reach places? That comes up again in the third indicator.
Definitely. If you're trying to reach customers in remote areas, places that aren't well served by major roads or rail lines, transloading can be a game changer.
You can combine the long-haul efficiency of rail with the localized flexibility of trucks.
Exactly. And if you're obsessed with cutting costs, which I think most businesses are, that's the fourth indicator.
The article mentions outbound compression. What does that mean?
It's about making your outbound shipping as efficient as possible. Maybe you're consolidating smaller shipments into bigger ones for part of the journey, or choosing the cheapest mode of transport for each leg. Transloading gives you more options to save money.
And finally, the last indicator is if you're dealing with lots of different types and sizes of cargo, things that could benefit from being consolidated for at least part of their journey.
Yeah, and transload facilities are designed for that kind of variety. They can handle pretty much anything, which means you can combine different types of goods into a single shipment, make things more efficient, and potentially save even more money.
Okay, so if any of that sounds familiar, you're shipping large volumes, reaching remote areas, looking to cut costs, dealing with a variety of cargo transloading might be worth exploring. But let's get into the nitty-gritty. How does this actually work in practice? What are the tools of the trade?
The article breaks down some of the common equipment. And it all depends on what you're shipping. For things like lumber, paper rolls, palletized goods, the trusty forklift is the workhorse.
Makes sense. They're great for moving stacked and packaged items.
Exactly. But for bulk materials like sand, grain, anything loose, you often see conveyor belts, like those big belts you see at construction sites or in factories. Continuous flow.
Right, right. What about liquids?
For liquids and also things like plastic pellets, they use pumps or pneumatic transfer systems, efficient and often sealed so you don't lose anything or contaminate the product.
Like when you see those tanker trucks filling up at a gas station, or those tiny plastic pellets that end up in so many products.
Precisely. And for those really big, heavy, awkward things, you need cranes.
Like steel beams.
Steel beams, rebar, huge pipes, even the giant blades and towers for wind turbines.
It's amazing what they can lift these days.
It is. And then for things like gravel, road salt, other minerals and aggregates, you often see front-end loaders scooping and moving stuff from rail cars to trucks or stockpiles.
So it's a whole toolbox of specialized equipment, depending on the cargo.
Definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Okay, so as we wrap this deep dive into transloading, the article leaves us with a final thought about using existing infrastructure. What does that mean in the context of transloading?
It means that businesses don't have to build their own rail lines or port facilities or massive trucking fleets. They can tap into what's already there.
It's about being smart and using the system efficiently.
Exactly, and recognizing that each mode of transportation has its strengths. Transloading is all about finding the right combination for the job.
So to recap, transloading is basically combining different transportation methods, mainly trucks and trains, but also ships, to move goods in the smartest, most efficient way possible. It can save you money, open up new markets, make your supply chain more flexible and resilient.
Right.
And while there are things to watch out for, choosing the right partners, managing the risk of damage, keeping track of your inventory for a lot of businesses, this can be a real game changer. It's about moving things the right way, not just moving them.
And as you think about all the stuff that moves around you every day, the food you eat, the clothes you wear, the technology you use, ask yourself, could a smarter combination of transportation unlock new possibilities? Could it make things more efficient, more sustainable, more accessible?
It's a question worth pondering. And hopefully this deep dive, with the help of Inbound Logistics magazine, has given you a better understanding of this hidden world of transloading. It's just a small part of how our global economy functions, but it's a critical one. And like I always say, there's always more to learn.
This is just the beginning.
Keep exploring.
Join the conversation on this topic by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting inboundlogistics.com.